Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer 7811-600 medium duty horizontal spring pivot hold open in a prime coat finish. This is the business end of this item. Floor plate for mounting to the floor, spring, adjustable spring tension, hold open version, meaning that it's kind of hard to show you. In this aspect here, when I rotate that open, there's a bird's mouth there that you can see, and obviously on both sides. And when you crank it over far enough, see if I can loosen the spring tension to show you that. Yep, spring tension is about as loose as it's going to go. Yeah, it's as loose as it's going to go. So I can't get it cranked over far enough for it to hold open by hand. But it'll hold open because there's a bird's mouth cut in here, and we'll go over this bearing, and that is on both sides, obviously. So this is a hold open model that will hold open at approximately 85 degrees. Adjustable spring tension, okay, which is important to help counteract the exact weight of the door that you're dealing with, and of course how quickly you want it to open and close. Floor mounted. They also make these with a jamb bracket. The floor mounted, in my experience, is far more common. Okay, that's the bottom portion, or the business end as I call it. You're going to get two frame plates. They look identical to each other. Prime coat finish for mounting to the bottom of this on both sides after you cut the door out. This is the heel edge of the door. Screws for attaching to the face of the door. Speaking of the heel edge, you'll get this plate, and that plate has a radius to it, which will match the radius treatment that you'll do on the door, which we'll talk about in a minute. The top pivot is here. Okay, this portion is mortised to the header. This goes into the door. This projects into the door. That's the portion that's mortised to the top of the door, and they go like this. Okay, you are going to get that tension rod you may have seen for setting the spring tension. Then you will get all of the screws necessary for installing this to the door. Okay. So there's a link below this video to the template / instructions. Here they are. And I won't go over them line by line, but I do want to review them and call out some of the high points. I've installed this hardware several times. I've machined doors for it several times. I've seen them installed after decades of use, and am familiar with how they work. So the bottom line is, the 7811 is for door thicknesses from 1 3/8 to 1 3/4. Thinner than that, you've got trouble. You're not going to be able to get this installed. Thicker than that, then the math that's on here is not going to add up either. So these are for 1 3/8, 1 3/4 doors. Again, we said it was hold open at 85 degrees. Obviously, this is double acting. This is for up to 90-pound doors, 3 foot in width. Anything beyond that, and you're going to want to talk about a different pivot. This is Bommer's medium duty, and they do make a light duty, and they do make a heavier version as well. So if you want to talk about what you would need for lighter or heavier doors, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll help you out with that. The high point of the installation aspect, really, in my opinion, is right away in step one, showing the radius that you have to achieve on the pivoting side of the door. It's really important to do a radius. You have to radius over the edge of the pivoting style of the door to allow yourself the 1/4 inch margin that's called out here. Okay, if my hand is the jamb and my fist is the door edge, if you didn't radius it over, the door would bottom out and not be able to open. So you've got to radius the side of the door over, and that's accomplished by laying the door down on your workbench sawhorses and having a large round over bit installed in your router. And you put that onto your door and you route down and create that round over edge. Think of the top row of tile in the bathroom. That's a bullnose. So you're going to basically bullnose one face of the door, then you're going to flip the door over and bullnose the other face of the door. And that, when you bullnose it on both faces, it'll become a radius like this. And you've got to make sure that your 1.5 radius is, the door thickness cannot be bigger than your radius. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble with it opening. The fact that they're calling out an 1.5 radius for an 1.75 door, that'll be okay because you've got a 1/4 inch margin. But anything less than an 1.5 radius, then you need to start to think about whether or not it's still going to work. Step 2 is really simple. That's just talking about the installation of this pivot to the top. You've got 1-inch diameter holes that they're calling out. What I've done in the past is just taken a Forstner bit and drilled that 3 times because it's 1 inch, and just no mortising is really required if you drill with the Forstner bit exactly where it has to go. You do that for the frame portion and the door portion. Okay. The next step, step 3, is the most work intensive in the sense that now you've got to get this entire thing mortised to the bottom of the door. However, it's pretty straightforward. You've got to get this mortised flush to the edge of the door. You've got to get this portion mortised flush to the edge of the door. And if you envision everything else that you have to cut out, it's that straightforward, which is all shown out here with all the dimensions. With the only exception is that there's a reference to an 1/8 inch deep, 1.5 inch long access point for the pin to be able to travel inside the door. And that happens when the door's opening and closing. That portion, that item will travel. Okay? So if you make this flush with the edge, mortise this flush with the bottom, and cut out the rest, that's just where you're going to have to be. And looking at this template, and I've not machined one of these in a little while, but that's exactly what it calls out for. Okay. Step 4 is attaching it to the door. Step 4 is attaching all of this to the door. Screws are included for everything. Okay. Screws in the edge. Step 5 is after you've got this attached and the top pivot assembly attached, you take the door and you tip it into the opening. And once you've got it tipped into the opening, you can mark your holes, pull your door out, drill your holes, put the door back in, and then fasten it down to the floor. The very last step, step 6, just involves attaching the decorative plates. And at that point, you're good to go. Obviously, set your tension before you attach the plates. But at that point, you're basically done. Your heel plate goes onto the edge, as well, shown in step 6. Okay, and that's going to mate with the back side of this. Okay, and dress it up that way. Obviously, they have plates on both sides. That's how that works. It's a great piece of hardware. I've seen these installed. My great-grandmother's house probably had this. They're identical, I think, down even to the template, installed in the late 1940s. And, in the late 1980s, it worked like the day they put it in. So dollar for dollar, this is a great piece of hardware to accomplish a double-acting sort of situation between, this was the dining room and the kitchen in a home. I wouldn't think there'd be any problem with a light-duty commercial application for this. Very durable spring down in here. Real good quality product. You can't see it, but down here is Bommer's logo and what it says above the logo, and you can't read it. It says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. If you have any questions on the Bommer 7811, and it is available in several finishes as well, maybe 10 finishes. This is the prime coat. If you have any questions on the Bommer 7811-600, medium duty horizontal spring pivot hold open version, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.